Every album has to have an opening track. How do they set up your listening experience? Well, we've got our favorites and we're counting them down. Our top 5 album opening tracks is coming your way. Welcome, friends, to the 3324 podcast. Another top 5. Actually, the first of this year. Right,
yes. First of the new season.
Yeah, first of the new season and first of 2025, I think.
Yep.
Yeah. So
yes,
it's
you're
been
right.
a long time coming.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we've got a really good one. This is going to be a lot of fun. Because it's an interesting subject. It's kind of, it's very particular. We're not just, it pulls away decades and it pulls away genres. But on the other hand, it makes it very specific about where this track is on an album. And we're doing top 5 opening tracks. So, we'll get to our guests in a moment, but if you're new to the show, you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. We're on all of those. If you want to even go further, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/3324, become a Green Room supporter, help independent content creators like Eric and I. We're indie. We're the original indies. Or Jones.
The DIY.
Actually, after Jones. But we're just as indie as Henry Jones Jr. So you can go to buymeacoffee.com/3324, get all the details there. Without further ado, let's get to the guests. The guy who came up with the idea for this top 5, it's subject matter. He said, "Hey, what about album opening tracks?" I'm like, what about album closing tracks then, for that matter, or fifth tracks on the album? No, just kidding. It was Mr. Christopher Clark sent us this one, and as soon as he sent it, I'm like, this is going to be very interesting. Christopher Clark, welcome aboard.
Hey, I'm really excited to be doing this one. I actually had a Spotify playlist a few years ago that I made, which just all album openers, and that's kind of where I had the idea where I suggested you do this for the top 5. What I was surprised about it is how quickly my top 5 came together for it. So hopefully that means it's a good one.
Yeah, mine too, but for a particular reason. We're going to try something a little different. Normally we do Spotify playlists. I'm making a YouTube music playlist, so we can so anybody can go and check this out on YouTube Music, and then I'll also do a video playlist of the songs as well. This way you can listen to that. Next guest making his first appearance of 2025 and of season 5. The man, the legend, coming from parts unknown. We know it's a basement. We know he's safe. Mr. Jerry Sullivan.
Yes, but if I faint, it's because my son spilled a whole bunch of gas or oil down here, so I'm like huffing this while we're going through. So,
oh my God!
Do you want to throw open a window?
Off, continue on without me.
Do you want to chuck a window open while we have a moment?
I don't really have a window down here to chuck open.
Oh,
so I'm huffing and I'm drinking. We're good.
Getting some serious Silence of the Lambs vibes from your locale there, Jerry. It's kind of creeping me out. No, joking.
No, it's where my son does like a lot of his whatever he does, and he must have spilled a whole bunch of gasoline or something down here. So.
Oh man.
Should be good.
Did he tell you, or did you just figure this out?
No, it's when I sat down as I'm sitting here, I'm like, this is a little stronger than it usually is. So
okay, so he didn't even tell you. You just walked into the trap.
Yeah, we're good though.
Just went in.
I won't light a match.
Yeah, I was going to say, good thing you're not a smoker. No.
It could be like the Dark Knight. It'd be like Aaron Eckhart in the Dark Knight.
Or that scene in The Crow. Is that gas I smell?
Yeah. So yeah, Jerry, welcome aboard. Thanks a bunch for partaking in this episode. I think it's going to be a fun one. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about opening tracks. And then I'll talk a little bit about my selection process too, because there are a couple of different types of opening tracks on albums. And that was what was making me think about, well, how am I going to go about this? Because some opening tracks are kind of like, if it's a prog album, it could be some just kind of a weird introduction that sets up the rest of the album, right? Some opening tracks are kind of like statement makers on certain albums. Like the opening track really kind of sets the tone for what's going to be coming, especially with certain classic albums. Eric, what was your thought process for this? Like, what was the, how did you go about tackling this? Because I had a particular way. I'll save it till the end.
I really didn't have a particular way. I just have a bunch of faves that but I will say that there is one on my list that is movie related. So,
okay. That'll be interesting.
So that was, and there's a reason why I chose it.
Okay.
But it actually appeared in 2 films. So,
he's dropping hints.
But I'll get to that. But no, I didn't come to it in any particular like direction or order. There's just some, real, I have, a couple that are just like you say about the prog thing. I mean, there's always some sort of a mood or some kind of a weird, opening out. I mean, like, I won't say no more, but it's just, it's just that kind of vibe, but also, but then you just want to have a really great track to open up an album that maybe the rest of the album isn't as good.
That could be
as an opening track. Too. Yeah. There's a couple on my list that applies to that as well. So, but yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes the first swing is the home run and the rest of the album is a series of singles and bunts.
Yeah.
Jerry, how did you approach this? Was this is just stuff I like, or were you kind of thinking about just broadly?
Well, no, I kind of went through. Well, first it struck me as this is odd because I don't think, a lot of music now or kids today are going to relate to something like this because there aren't albums anymore. And it dawned on me that there's not a lot of, except for, people that are really into band or whatever, you're not going to get people buying albums. And I was like, that kind of struck me as odd as I went through this because I started trying to think of my favorite albums and why they kind of landed there. And a lot of times it would be like albums that you would listen through the whole way through type of thing. One of those, which is again, something that is probably foreign to a lot of people. And it would always start like just, the first few notes of the first track are what kind of would put me in that mood to go with that album. And that's kind of how I did it. I just tried to think of what albums did I guess more when you had to put a CD in or something in where I would you put it in and there's no, no fast forward, no track skip type of thing. And that's kind of how I went through with it.
Okay. So Chris, you said you made a playlist before. So did you cull any picks from that playlist and are they going to make an appearance here?
I'm sure there are, but I never actually went back and looked at the playlist because I said I wanted to do it like where I was in the moment. And I got one, you guys, my brother did a top 5 of this once and I told him what the topic was and he gave me one idea and then I let the others just kind of come naturally. And the ones that kind of just kept entering my mind over and over again, those were the ones that ended up in my top 5. But what I found interesting is, being on the show, I kind of gained a little bit of a reputation as like the prog guy. But what I noticed is that a lot of my top 5 are the songs that are a little bit like from like either like my hit, the albums I listened to as a kid that were either like punk or hard rock or metal and a little bit shorter and a little bit more immediate to kind of grab you right from the beginning. It wasn't any of the like more epic or majestic or any of like the proggier or grandiose songs that I didn't really find myself landing on that. And what I also noticed is that the 5 that kind of stuck with me were also on albums that were really important to me as I was growing up. So that's
that too for me. Yeah.
Interesting.
And it wasn't by design. It just, those are the 5 I kind of landed on and felt good about making my top 5.
Yeah. For mine, I this could be a very easy category. You can pick, there are plenty of albums you could pick and say, wow, the opening track is just like amazing. And at first I was approaching it that way. And then I'm like, you know what? I wanted to challenge myself, and so I decided to only pick albums that I had the vinyl for. I said,
Okay.
because my vinyl collection is stuff that I bought that's really important to me, and I bought them for a reason. So I went on Discogs and I looked at my collection, and I took it from that aspect. I'm like, what are some of these albums that are important to me, and why is the first song so important? So much like kind of like Chris said, and Jerry, to all of you, for the most part, it's kind of like, yeah, this is when you had to, you would sit down, you would select what you're going to listen to, and these are the ones that you don't ramp. I guess is it safe to say that like these songs don't ramp up? Like these aren't ramp up songs, because that's something different. There could be great opening tracks that ramp up to a larger point, right? They get to they start here, but they end up, the album ends up somewhere else. So these are all stuff that from my collection. Chris will be very happy to know that I have the vinyls here. I pulled them from the collection, so I'll be if you're watching on YouTube, you'll be able to you'll see the vinyls. But let's get it started. Let's get things rolling. Like we do, we do our top 5, and then if we've got time, which we've never not had time, we do some honorable mentions. So maybe we should just make it. I still like the idea of a top 5 because it sounds shorter and it makes the episode sound shorter than it actually is. But Chris, since you were the founder of the Feast, let's go with your top 5 album opening tracks. So what's the number 5 for you?
So my album opener, this is the one that was the suggestion from my brother. He said automatically this one has to be on there. It's from one of the biggest debut albums of all time. I think it's the biggest selling debut album of all time. And that's Welcome to the Jungle by Guns N' Roses, which really kind of sets the tone for where that record's going to go and what it's going to be. And it's just one of the most amazing songs ever recorded, and really kind of sucks you into that record right from the word go, from Axl screaming to, Slash's amazing guitar playing and just that sick rhythm section of Duff and Steven Adler. It's Appetite was on heavy rotation in the late 80s for me and my friends and my younger brother. So I definitely had to throw that one in there. And I walked into this song at my wedding. So,
wow.
There you go.
How did your wife feel about that? I walked into
that was the one gimme I got. So I want to walk into
my first wedding. I walked into Star Wars theme. It should have been the Imperial March, but instead,
yeah. So
sorry for another time. So Welcome to the Jungle, absolutely a tone setter. I think it was a tone setter for rock and roll too. It was kind of like a shot across the bow.
Absolutely.
Rock and roll at that time of a return to a dirty, greasier, kind of grittier feel. So that was not only an album opening track; it was almost a genre defining
100%
opening track. So I wonder if we're going to have any crossover on this, because Jerry was kind of smiling.
I was going to say Jerry looked like he had that on his list. I felt bad.
If not songs, I would definitely think the group would be. I think might be mentioned twice. I don't know.
You think so? Okay,
perhaps. We've already I think I put when the emails were flowing, we're going back and forth, and it's hard not to choose stuff that we've already done too. We've already talked about. I mean, we've done some great
some of that
albums.
Stuff's important. Absolutely.
And there's some real great heavy hitters, and I tried really, really hard not to go there. But I'm glad to say there are a couple, but they're probably down in the honorable mention category. Okay. So,
all right. Well, then take it from there. Go with what's your number 5, Eric?
My number 5 is a great opening riff. It opens the album. Couldn't Stand the Weather, Scuttle Button by Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Oh man,
instrumental introduction. It goes, kind of sets up the title track, and which is a bluesier track for sure, and it just kind of opens up in its own way, but this thing just gets you going. And I just love that riff, and it's only about 1 minute and 30 seconds long, but it talk about a tone setter that really that gets you. Yeah.
And then after that is Couldn't Stand the Weather, so like it kind of right, it's like
and again it ends right, and it just sort of like it, but Couldn't Stand the Weather could have been the opening track. Given that in itself, it has a little bit of its own introduction, right? And then it cuts into the song. But to have that fast-paced riff, just why that was chosen as the opener, I don't know. but
Yeah.
I always loved that. It's probably
Yeah.
one of the best openers of his, repertoire.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it just
there.
starts
So,
like it just start like the album just starts. It's like
yeah.
you're not going. You're starting in third or fourth gear already. Like when that album starts, which is just kind of and
Yeah,
it was one of the reasons why I got that on cassette when it came out because
Yeah.
it's just like
Yeah.
just amazing. All right, Jerry, number 4, not Guns N' Roses.
Well, yeah, I had a feeling someone was going to pick that, so I was prepared to move on from that.
How many sheets of paper do you have today?
Just one, because I didn't have to write so much out.
Yeah, the metal one you had a lot, right?
Yeah, he had a notebook.
Wow.
Mine, going to metal, it is off of one of Iron Maiden's albums. It's called Moonchild.
Oh, great
Off
record.
of their Seventh Son of a Seventh Son album, which is a loosely kind of based concept album talking about, this mystical seventh son of a seventh son, going all that route. And it's not like one of their blast in your face type of movie. It's kind of almost like a slower song, but it starts off the story, and that's one of the, like, to me, that's an album I could listen to. If I hear things off it, it's fine, but I like to listen to that when I can, start to finish, because it takes me. That was during a time when we probably all of these are going to be from when we're younger, but it just told a story. It was and I think it was one of the first albums that I was really like delving into, like the story behind the stories. And Iron Maiden, a lot of their stuff, they like to drone on for hours with some of their songs, which I love, but it's like, you forget you're listening to a song. So that, just because that kind of starts off a whole story, that was one of the first things that popped in my mind when we were talking. It does, not so much sets the mood, because a lot of the other songs go in different directions as far as tempo and stuff, but it literally starts off a story.
All
And
right,
without
so we're going to give Jerry the first concept album pick.
Yes.
So I'm sure I'm sure there'll be some here, and again, it's very particular. You got to be careful when you're picking a concept album opening track, because like I said, some of them could just be, anything from Pink Floyd. The first track is always just it's ambient, or and it's not really a banger. I mean, the rest of the album is great, but it's not the thing you think of. So
that song is great too. The way it builds with the guitar and then the power chords and the drums, and it picks up speed. It's a really cool tune.
So Maiden. So far we have Stevie Ray Vaughan, Guns N' Roses, Iron Maiden, and we're going to add number 5. Eric will appreciate this. Black Cars from Gino Vanelli.
Great choice.
This is I heard this song. When I heard this song, I didn't know much about Gino Vanelli. Eric probably knew more.
Mm-hmm.
But
Very jazz fusion.
It's so prototypical 80s. That if you dig that song, you're gonna get the rest of it. And I just felt, it's one of those ones. Usually I won't get past the first track if it's the hit. But I did on this. But what this album did for me was made me go back and listen to other stuff by Gino Vanelli, and then I found out that this was the outlier. He's actually a contemporary jazz vocalist.
Oh wow!
So it opened. So what it did is it actually opened a different door for me, because this was firmly 80s. The sequencing, the drum machines, the synths, and I love it. And it's got such a hook. But then I'm like, oh, let me go listen to other Gino Vanelli. Then of course, I knew he had Living Inside Myself and all that kind of stuff. But I just want to stop. But I went back and did a deeper dive and really got into him as a vocalist and really was able to appreciate it. So it was kind of a twofold thing. This track starts off as a banger. It's a lost 80s classic, but everybody's going to be hearing it when they check out the YouTube playlist. Eric, any thoughts on Mr. Gino Vanelli?
Oh yeah, Brother to Brothers is a phenomenal album, by the way. If there's one album from those days, like the 70s, you say contemporary, this is more sort of, dare I say, he had a hell of a band on that record.
Yeah.
My drum teacher back in the day was a huge fan. He always wanted to get the gig. He was like, I think he was trying to audition for Gino, like at one point or another, because he, the drumming is sort of that sort of jazz fusion, Billy Cobham type drumming, which is, really good stuff. The fast numbers on that album are great. But I the 80s thing, I think it was, but there's some great things on that record as well. Him and his brother, they co-wrote some of the songs, and there's just a lot of like great rhythm. It to me reminds me of Miami Vice. A lot of that stuff, that kind of Jan Hammer type of vibe going on, like the rhythms and those
because everything was artificial. It was all sequenced and kind of programmed and
right.
But Black Cars is a banger. All right, we got through our first round successfully. So Chris, why don't you take us to number 4, won't you?
All right, so it's not by design, but somehow my first 2 picks are from 2 debut albums.
Okay.
And I remember when I was a kid, my uncle made me a copy of 1984 by Van Halen. And then on the flip side, put a whole bunch of songs, and a couple were from the first Van Halen record. And it made me make my dad go out and get it for me. And I remember when we were in the car and he put the record on, and that air horn came on to Running with the Devil by Van Halen. And then you had that just amazing opening riff that just kind of draws you into that, another one that just draws you into that record and sets the tone. And that thundering bass, that one note bass, and Eddie Van Halen's crazy guitar playing, and those power chords, and David Lee Roth's voice. It's one of the greatest album openers of all time, in my opinion. Running with the Devil is one of those ones I can listen to over and over again without getting bored.
Interesting. I was thinking
I had that in mind too. I almost put it, but nope.
It's on the surface. It sounds like it's a simple song because it's just got that one doom, boom.
Yeah.
It sounds very simple, but but there's a lot going on there. The world was introduced to Eddie Van Halen. There's a it's not really a meme, but it was going around a few years ago of just Roth's isolated vocals from that song. And when you
those
listen,
things are weird.
Yeah, and when you listen to it without the music, it sounds demented. Yeah, he's doing all these weird screams and weird like wow, and without any musical context, and you hear it. I'll link it in the show notes. It's bizarre. Yeah. It's funny and it's strange because you find out how important the backing band is to Roth, that all the stuff he does fits within. It needs to fit within what Van Halen is doing.
And most importantly, you need Michael Anthony's background vocals. That's sure. To kind of prop up David Lee Roth.
Absolutely. All right, we got the mighty Van Halen on the board. Eric, number 4.
Okay, so this is an example of a great opening track, but not a very good album.
So the home run came first.
Yeah, and I always loved this track, and I almost picked "Owner of a Lonely Heart" by Yes, but I like the album, but the album's decent. I mean, the one that came after this was Big Generator. And
it's not a good album at all.
It's not a good album. But I really love "Rhythm of Love," the opening track. I don't know.
That's a great song, though. Yeah, you're right.
Oh man, if the rest of the album were anything like that, it would have been great because it's more Trevor Rabin oriented. I think it's him and Squire and White really laying down that sort of more rocking type of thing, which is what they wanted to do in the first place with Cinema, before they became another version of Yes. But it really takes you somewhere, man. I mean, even like Anderson's vocals, I mean, the way it's processed, and again, was produced by Trevor Horn. So some really great polish there, some great, things going on in the song, but it really, I dig it. I always did. And in fact, I just, that's on those compilation albums, it's one that I always, and was glad that they added, to the list, because it is a great track. So, but the rest of the album, no, not so much.
No,
unfortunately,
there's our first. We're having a bunch of firsts of. Admittedly, the opener is as good as it's going to get, in Eric's opinion. So that's Yes. Did Trevor Horn produce that album too, or no? They kicked
did.
They kick him?
He did.
I know he. Yep. I don't know if he produced all of it, but I know he was involved.
Okay.
Yeah, it's certainly on this track. You can definitely tell there's some great stuff going on there. But it's again, it's just a great song, and I just love. I always liked Trevor Rabin. I always liked what he was up to, and his vision for what the band could have been. But then he kind of just, okay, well, we'll just call it Yes, and that's what it is. And I feel like they could have taken it in a different direction and a more sort of, because he's not afraid to go there as far as the prog stuff, because he's done some long-winded type stuff. But I mean, for this particular thing in the 80s, this was a great track. So Rhythm of Love.
Rhythm of Love. Yep. Yes. Mm-hmm. Big generator. Jerry. Okay. What do you got for number 4?
I'm going Van Hagar, if you will. I was afraid. I didn't know where Chris was going to go when he started with that. I'm going Pound Cake.
Oh, man, that's a great song. Yeah.
Carnal Knowledge. Just the way, and I went to see, they're probably who I've seen the most, and he often would start it with that when they use the drill on the guitar, and that was right in my high school days. So we just thought that was brilliant. Like, oh my God, he's not only is he guitars, he's a magician. But
eat your heart out, Jimmy Page, and your violin, bro.
You just light it on fire. What the hell? But that's just the way that all starts, and it just ramps that album up.
Yeah,
and,
it does.
Van Halen's probably maybe up there with Iron Maiden as my favorites of all time. They're who I've seen the most. And that song, just the way that starts, and then it just launches into it. And to me, the whole album just kind of flows from that. And as soon as I hear that, it sends shivers down my spine. So
yeah, that was probably the apex for the Van Hagar.
Yeah.
Like that was
then it got bumpy after that.
Yeah. It was a steep decline, a steep slope on the other side.
that was where they really went back to being more guitar driven and not so hyped up on the keyboards, despite the fact that the biggest hit was very keyboard heavy. But that was definitely much more of a rocker than OU812 for sure.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the same with 5150, it's just a different sound. It did kind of go back to the old, you're feeling like Eddie Van Halen's guitar was kind of the signature type of feel from the album. At least that's how I was.
Jerry, when you said Van Hagar, I thought you were going to say Good Enough from 5150.
I thought so too, honestly.
Like the opening shot across the bow.
Hello, baby.
I remember when I heard that. I'm like, okay.
That was in my honorable mentions. I'll say that because it was tough. But I think it was the drill on the guitar that led me towards Pound Cake. Yeah, just a different, it's something different. As a kid, that was just different to us, and that's always stuck in my head. So that's what got the bump over Good Enough.
Cool. All right, Pound Cake. So we've got two Van Halens, different iterations. So it's going to be an interesting playlist. Don't forget, we're going to put this up on YouTube Music and on YouTube. So you'll be able to check out the video versions, or if you have YouTube Music, you'll just get the music playlist. Okay, my number 4 is by an artist who was really big in the late 60s. One of the classic rock and roll groups of the late 60s, early 70s. The group breaks up. He puts out a solo album or two, like 74, 75. And then in 1984, 85, he reemerges after 10 years hiatus with a song and an album. The album is Center Field. It's John Fogerty. The song is The Old Man Down the Road, which
what he got sued for?
Kind of has John Fogerty roaring back, swampy, yes. like really kind of like where was this guy for all this time? Like, where was the sound of Creedence like when we needed it? And on Center Field, he just came roaring back with The Old Man Down the Road. Just kind of, again, it's just got that it's so much so, it's so swampy that the owner of Fantasy Records, who owns the CCR catalog, sued John Fogerty. He says, you know what? The Old Man Down the Road sounds like Run Through the Jungle.
Yeah.
And so he sued him. He's like, how could you sue me? I wrote both songs. You can't sue me for plagiarizing myself. But he did get sued. So John Fogerty brought his guitar into court. He said, here's how I wrote Run Through the Jungle. Here's how I wrote, Old Man Down the Road. And yes, I'm an artist, so I have a certain feel to my songs. And the jury said, yeah, no, we don't see it.
It's like
and then
Vanilla
Fogerty said, can I get the lawyer's fees that I paid? And it went to the Supreme Court, and he got like $1 million plus back in lawyer's fees that he had to pay. It was like a precedent. So the rest of this album is just incredible. I loved this album. This takes me back to like summer of 84, 85. It's just a magical album, but the first track, Old Man Down the Road, is just kind of like, oh, did we go into a time machine? 68 or 69, like and find like a lost CCR recording? It's just absolutely there.
Right? It's a great.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's it. Okay,
that's it.
All right. Uncomfortable silence. Here we go. Chris, number 3. We're sailing through these, so we will absolutely.
Eric still has to go.
Oh wait, no, Eric went.
I went.
Jerry went, and then I went.
Eric, you went. Oh, so I am up. Oh, Jesus, I'm sorry.
Come on,
you're good.
man.
Sorry.
What are you drinking, man?
I don't know. I guess I had a little too much rum in my Coke.
Get this man a gin and tonic.
All right. This one is from. It's probably an obvious one, but when I was a kid in high school and playing the bass, everybody needed to know how to play Nirvana songs. Like everybody thought they were in a Nirvana cover band. So I picked.
Jerry's making a face, and he's writing.
Smells Like Teen Spirit from Nirvana.
Just drew a line.
He's crossing something out there.
Jerry just drew a line through something.
Sorry, dude.
That's fine. I don't. Yeah, I'm with you, man.
Yeah, I mean, everybody like Nirvana was huge. I still remember the day he died in my high school, and everybody being pissed off and upset and crying and all that kind of stuff. And it's just a really important song on a really important album to me, and I think a lot of my people my age that listen to rock and roll. So, and it's a great record, and I've been reacquainting myself a lot lately with a lot of those Seattle bands. So I just went back and listened to this record, and it definitely still holds up.
Yeah, Jerry,
Absolutely.
why don't you pick up off that? I mean, since it was on your list. No, honestly, why was it on your list as well?
Because that album kind of is what, I mean, obviously it started a whole movement, but it just stood out. I guess because of the time of my life, it just stood out. I was the first one in my friend group to really get into it. And it kind of like just those first few notes as it starts. And then also just the whole trying to figure out what the hell he was saying, all that stuff. And then going through, and that it was just, that music was very much more emotional. Like going back to Iron Maiden, you can't get emotional with that because they're just, some of them are so long and you're trying to follow a tale. Like Nirvana was just like, you just felt it. Even when you went back to their older stuff, it just, even if you didn't understand it, you felt the music, you felt the energy that was coming through it. And, like just hearing it, I've, same as Chris, kind of, within the past few months, kind of went back to that, like to listen to the whole album, just because those first few notes just take me right back to that time, and the whole album just kind of, you lose yourself in it.
Yeah.
Which takes me to the other, like just as a tangent, did any of you guys see Post Malone?
Oh, that was fantastic. Oh my God.
When he did the Nirvana,
really
Nirvana.
good.
With the Nirvana?
That's coming out. That's
I'm
coming out
not
on Record Store Day.
expecting to like that.
You know what? What made me prepare to say this is going to be good is that he went on the Stern Show and did, I forget what Alice in Chains song it was, but he did an Alice in Chains cover and it was fantastic. So when Nirvana picked him, I was like, actually, that's a really good choice because I know he can handle that kind of stuff. And it was so good, man.
I was not thinking I would actually like that, but it definitely won me over with how he didn't change, he kind of kept it as true as you kind of can.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's actually getting a release. It's getting released on Record Store Day. I don't know if it's going to be definitely on vinyl. I don't know if it's going to be on other formats, but absolutely, yeah. Yeah, and he wore the dress and everything too. When I remember watching when he did the performance, he kind of dressed like how Cobain used to put on like a house dress and stuff like that, and do it. So, yeah, all right, Nirvana again. That's like another watershed moment, Chris. Much like Guns N' Roses. These are kind of moments in music history that are markers. That stand out for everybody.
Yeah, and really kind of like changed rock and roll, or shifted rock and roll in a different direction in some respects.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally repositioned it and pointed it. Eric, number 3. What's it gonna be?
What's it gonna be? This is the movie pick I was referring to. I just watched Jackie Brown 2 weeks ago because I just got the 4K, thing, and it looks fantastic, by the way. But the opening track, Across 110th Street, always loved the song. I mean, it's from the movie. That was a movie called that, and it was from the soundtrack, Bobby Womack. What's interesting about it is, like, Quentin Tarantino, I thought, was really clever in the choice of obviously, being influenced by that film and that type of those kinds of films in the 70s and the music. But he did. What's interesting to me is that they play the whole track in the movie, and in Jackie Brown, they play the entire run of the track, which is very rare for a needle drop in a soundtrack. You get part of it. Most of the time, you get maybe half the song, perhaps almost 3/4 of the way through, before they cut it off to some. Even in Pulp Fiction, they cleverly change the dial on the radio, and it goes to Jungle Boogie. But in here, I just love the fact that they play the entire 3 minute and 45 seconds of the song, of the single. And that's, it really kind of sets the mood for the movie, sets the mood, says everything about her, because you don't see her until like a half hour into the film, maybe more. So they kind of introduce the character, and then she comes back much later on, but it just sort of, I mean, I just think it's a great opening to both of those films. I think I'd seen the original like maybe once, a long time ago, but I don't really remember it too well. But the album, I looked it up. I did, they both versions, they do play the entire run. And I think Tarantino did that on purpose, I think.
Of course, probably homage.
Probably an homage to that. So, just sort of using the track, and, because he knows how to pick some great songs. And this is one of them. And, I always love the track, and it's just, it's a great soundtrack.
Yeah.
And a great opening to a soundtrack, a great, but a hell of an opening song to the soundtrack and to the movie. So there you go.
Yeah, the camera is just on Jackie in the beginning, right? Just she's going through the airport,
like
going
to the LAX. She's on the walkway. You see the wall, the famous thing. And it's just
it just kind of, we're not going anywhere. We're staying here. We're going to play.
There's not much. Song. I mean, there's really not much going on. It's a pretty fast paced song, pretty intense. But it's just her. The camera just stays on her, and it's just you're focused on her, and you're drawn to her.
Yeah,
and that is a fabulous way to open a film.
Great choice.
So
across 100, there you go. Across 110th Street.
10th Street. Yep.
Cool. All right, Jerry. Feels like you kind of feels like you're double dipping, but it's actually your turn for number 3. Because Chris did a double, almost a double steal, but he's got a single.
No, technically he did do a double.
Dude, that's right, Guns N' Roses.
Sorry, dude.
Almost a triple steal, but
well, Jerry, you know what? He came up with the topic, so he gets to go first. So it's kind
absolutely.
of
my apologies.
Which is, I had a feeling some of these would, so that's why I went pretty deep. I don't know if this next one, I believe I did a podcast on this one. But it's along the same, energy of Nirvana. Once from Pearl Jam's 10.
Oh, it's a great tune.
Starting that off, we did a podcast on that, right? Didn't we? Yes, we did. So I wasn't just talking to myself about that.
You might have done a second episode.
Yeah. But yeah, just the way though, again, those opening notes after that, the little intro that comes in with it, those opening notes starts the whole story of those few songs, and just sends Pearl Jam on its way in the world. And here we have Eddie Vedder being Eddie Vedder now, but that's another one along with Nirvana that just came along at that time in your life in high school where you're molded into who you are. And I've never looked back since. Another one of those, like I said, I did all these albums, all these songs were albums that I would listen to the whole thing, start to finish, if I have the time. And that's those notes just send me off into a whole new world when that starts off.
And that's a really special album. Like Pearl Jam recorded a lot of great records. I mean, their first 3 or 4 albums are pretty flawless, but that album is a gem. It's very special. Like it's perfect in every way, and it track listing and sequencing and the way it was recorded. I mean, right from the word go, that's an amazing record.
Yeah, it's one of those ones. Like if you get the first track, you got the the rest of it. Like I said, Eric so far has the outlier where the first track is good and then the rest of it's kind of like but and I'm sure we may have more, but Pearl Jam is the same thing. Like it's the first track is very indicative of what you're going to get. It's like this that established the Pearl Jam sound in that, and then anything after that is an extension. On that album, not to say that that they don't do other things, but from their debut album and then the very first song, it's important. Those are back then it was important for that. Unless you were going for something really experimental and off the wall, that first track, it had to be a grabber. And it absolutely was. Great choice.
Thank you.
There's a lot of late 80s, early 90s, stuff there, Mine was this one's probably the it's not obscure, but it's probably the most obscure I would get. And it's the title, it's the opening track is Beds Are Burning from Midnight Oil.
Great record.
Okay.
The album Diesel and Dust. And when I first heard this song, it has like a Peter Gunn-ish. So that kind of grabbed me, and then Peter Garrett, the lead singer, has a very strange, could almost be frightening style of singing. It's almost menacing, almost like Collins, almost like Mama, right? Like that. Like he's got that kind of thing in parts of the song. So I thought it was an oddity. I thought, okay, this is kind of quirky. What I didn't realize is how this would kind of open up me listening to music from a socially conscious aspect. Right. And how Midnight Oil, this was about, the treatment of the Aboriginal people and what was going on in Australia and all that stuff. So the track was important because it got my ear enough to get me to get this, and then I listened to the rest of it and really came to love this album and came to love kind of understanding that music. It's great to have music that's great to listen to, but then there's things that need to be said that are important, or I need to be educated in a certain way that reading something in an article, but saying it through music can kind of get it across if you're open to it a certain way. So Beds Are Burning from Midnight Oil. I'd love to do an episode on this one day, but it's just a fantastic album. So it's it's got that Peter Gunn. They really kind of threw the hook. They really laid that hook in there, which was brilliant because and then they kind of get you with the subject matter and the material. So Beds Are Burning from Midnight Oil, Diesel and Dust.
Yeah, you loved that song back in the day. I remember.
I did.
It's a great song.
Yeah. I'm telling you, it was such a earworm. It was just so. Again, it was the vocals. Everything was just so different about it. It was everything about it was so different from what I was listening to. And maybe that was what kind of. And then I got it. I remember because I was working at Crazy Eddie at the time. When they were transitioning. That's how old I am. They got sold and they got bought by like Record Town or whatever. But but they used to have all these deals on CDs, like like from Chrysalis or CBS Records, like 2 for 1. So I was just buying all kinds of anything that was on CBS. I was getting it because it was a deal, and I picked this up, and like Sinead O'Connor, which is Chrysalis, which was a subsidiary of CBS. I got Lion in the Call, so I was just buying a whole bunch of stuff, and then I had it, and I just then opened up to this whole other way of listening, not only to well-produced music like my favorite bands, but stuff that had something to say. So, all right, we are crashing into number 2. Chris, what are you going to steal from Jerry's list for number 2?
I don't know if I'm going to steal from Jerry. I hope I'm not going to steal from Jerry.
Jerry, Jerry, get your pen ready. Do you have a red pen to cross out? The red pen of despair.
So this one, it's in one of my favorite movies of all time, which is Almost Famous. So to quote Philip Seymour Hoffman playing Lester Bangs, Iggy Pop, amen. Search and Destroy by Iggy and the Stooges from the record of the same name. So excuse me, Raw Power, not the record of the same name. It's called Raw Power. Just James Williamson's dirty guitar, and Iggy singing with that attitude, and that opening line is almost like a battle cry. I'm a street walking cheetah with a heart full of napalm. It's just a raw go for the throat kind of song. And it's one of those ones you can't help but like turn up the volume and hit the gas pedal. It's a great tune, and it's on a really great record that kind of laid the foundation for what became punk rock in the 70s and beyond. It's a really great song on a really important record.
Yeah. Prototypical, and Iggy Pop is still performing with his shirt off, and
apparently still very, very good live. So
yeah, and still smearing peanut butter on him and
glass and God knows what else.
Who doesn't?
Oh yeah, that was Iggy and the Stooges. I mean, at the time they weren't very the influence wasn't to be felt. Kind of like with them and the New York Dolls, it was kind of odd and strange, and it was kind of subversive, and wouldn't be until years later.
And those 3 records, like they did, which the Stooges, Funhouse, and Raw Power, all 3 of those records are they're phenomenally well done albums. They're worth picking up and giving a listen to for sure.
Yeah. All right, Jerry, did that? You survived the cut?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're good there. We're good.
Just want to make sure you're all right. I'm going to check in with you for the next couple.
No.
All right, Eric, number 2.
All right.
What do you got?
Classic. Great opening track to a great album. Everything on this album is great. The great Simon and Garfunkel, Bridge Over Troubled Water.
Yeah.
Hell of
Love
a,
that.
you would think it's such an emotional song, and what a way to kick off an album, but then the very next track is this fun loving Cecilia with this great sort of, like sort of Latin thing going on.
Yeah.
And, Simon would, kind of juice it up and, but man, what a fantastic opener, to an album.
Mm-hmm.
It's already, it just tears your guts out, man. It's just such a great song. Always was, it is, and always will be. So a great album. It's just an absolute masterpiece. One of my favorites.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is.
Instant classic. I mean, as it was being written.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they did some great stuff, but this has to be probably their finest. And yet obviously all the trouble was happening with them. And, this was to be their last record, but it's a kind of a shame because it really, it was the first album that was launching into the 70s, and they could have continued. They could have done something, I think, more. There was such potential there. And it's just a shame that they, Simon would go on to do some great stuff on his own, but it's just, but man, what a masterpiece. So
yeah,
I love the track, love the album, always have. So there it is. That's my number 2.
I love when they interview Paul Simon and they ask him about Garfunkel. He always calls him Arthur still.
Yeah.
He calls him because they were friends since they were kids, like 7 or 8 years old, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But he still calls him Arthur. Like he refers to him as Arthur. And oddly enough, Paul Simon just announced that he's touring, where he said, I can't tour anymore, I can't sing or I can't play. And then he's on the SNL 50th, and then all of a sudden he's announcing a tour.
That was pretty decent. He really wasn't sounding all that great, but I have to say,
McCartney was rough too.
Oh my God, horrible.
Yeah,
Horrible.
he's
He was
touring.
bad. He was
He's
bad?
touring too much. Yeah, he's touring too much.
McCartney, bad, just really bad. But everybody was into it,
Wow.
so it's Paul McCartney.
Yeah,
of
he
course.
was trying. You know, he warmed up, but he did. You know, Golden Slumbers. They did that whole end medley type thing, and it was just. It's you know, it's rough to see, especially from McCartney, who's like a perfectionist, and he's just like
he is.
he's the fucking man, you know.
Mhm.
But
I think that's the reason why I didn't care for that new track that they cobbled together, because he doesn't sound good on it. He's just kind of laying weird vocals over, you know.
Yeah, he's got to
stuff
give it
that's
a
already
rest
recorded.
for a while. Yeah, he's
I
got to
think
give
so.
his voice a
I
rest
think
for a
so.
little bit. All right,
But
Jerry, calling Jerry Sullivan, number 2.
I'm here. A little aside to the Bridge Over Troubled Waters.
Sorry.
When I was in high school, we had a big retreat. I went to a Catholic high school. And one of the things that they did when we first got there is they went through big songs that were in our lifetime, even if we weren't old enough to kind of know them. And one of them that has always stuck in my head, and it's the reason why that song always brings me back to a very intense time of my life, was because of that retreat. And that was one of the songs. And like, it was like you would sit there and they'd play the song and you try and, like, you know, kind of connect to it so that, you know, you have a connection to a part of your life. So that song that was a really good choice.
Good.
Thank you.
I love that story.
Well, that's
so moving right along.
All right.
I don't know if
Jerry came down from his mountain of heavy metal to show us his tender side via Simon and Garfunkel. Now he will descend the Mount Megadeth and take his throne.
The softer side of Jerry Sullivan.
Yeah. So this one, I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble with, but because
in what fashion?
In that it's actually a live album.
Okay.
But it's a well-known live album.
Okay.
It's off of Johnny Cash's At Folsom Prison.
Very nice.
And it's Folsom Prison Blues is the opening song, but it starts with "Hello, I'm Johnny Cash." Yep. And that will always send me I love that so much. And the whole album it's such a different thing because, you know, he was so tied to trying to give these guys whose lives are, you know, if you want to say over, because they're just languishing in prison. He gave them 2 hours or whatever of freedom, and it was very, you know, he allowed it wasn't as controlled as they normally. Obviously, it was the best behaved prisoners. You know, they weren't going to riot, but it didn't all go smooth. There was like an interruption in it. And, you know, even when you listen to the lesser known, the San Quentin one, it's just it's to think that this, you know, he made it a point to go. These people, you know, some people will disagree, deserve some joy, and they connected to him because some of his songs, you know, just spoke to them. Yeah. And when it just starts with the "Hello, I'm Johnny Cash," and then he goes into it, it just just takes you to a totally different. At least takes me to a different zone, because it's like not just, you know, the studio. He's singing to people that, knock on wood, none of us ever need to relate to. And especially Folsom Prison being known for being such a hard, you know, there's also San Quentin. Yeah.
Folsom Prison's underground too, so not only are these dudes in prison, they're in prison under the earth. Yeah, it's like crazy.
And it's like you're just like you're not, you know, people like, you're not going to see that today. And it was just, he had a tie to it, even though he had a crazy life. And a lot of people like to rip on him. You know, I had a friend that loved him, but he was like, he made a living off of like 3 chords, and I'm like, yeah, but he played those.
What he did with those 3 chords, man.
So Jerry, you know, you can't say "Hello, I'm Johnny Cash" without doing it like him. You can't. You said it a couple of times. You have to say it.
Well, I can't do it justice.
No, you have to. You have no choice. You can't do it. "Hello, I'm Johnny Cash."
I'm Johnny Cash.
Wait, do that again.
Hello, I'm Johnny Cash.
There you go.
That's as good as I can do.
That's all I wanted.
So good. So good.
No, that's yes, it's a live album, but not really. because it's not like like a concert with, you know, like Kiss Alive or something like that. It's something different. You know, there was a reason for those shows. You know, it was like I said, it wasn't from like a tour. It was kind of, yeah, he's doing this for a particular reason, and they recorded that performance.
Yeah, it was.
That's the way I look at that more as less of a live album than a recording of an event, of a performance.
Good, then I'm not in trouble.
And it's so perfectly recorded. It's such a perfect album. Oh, I love that record.
Good. All right.
See,
My number 2. I always try and make it a point to not be a homer. I really do. I always when we do these things, I try not to kind of go there, because I don't want to wear out the welcome. But for number 2, there can't be, and it's a double dip. So you can ding me on this, but there's nothing finer than the El Dorado Overture with "Can't Get It Out of My Head."
Nope.
If there's music that can make me cry, it is and give me tingles, it is the El Dorado Overture.
Damn.
You didn't have that on your list. I would have been very disappointed if you didn't have.
So good.
No, like and because the song "Can't Get It Out of My Head" literally leads right into it. There's no gap. I'm kind of, you're getting 2 for 1 on this. This
man. Yeah, definitely.
This is magical music.
Yes.
This is magical music that you lay down. I remember when I was young, I had a record player, but I didn't have headphones. So I used to take the 2 speakers and put them on the pillow and lay with my head in between them. And my mother would yell, like she'd be calling me, and I couldn't hear shit. And then she came into the room, and she said, "What the hell are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh shit," But it was just like this. These 2 songs can this is where music can transport you. This is, for me, this is a time machine. This takes me to a different place. And it's, this is emotional music for me, especially like the first 2 songs.
Very nice.
Absolutely magic. So Chris, I know you're a new
that is in heavy rotation in my house right now. And then I got my dad listening to it now, and my daughter liked it, and we're all digging on that record recently. I don't know what it was about that record that struck me, but I totally get what you're saying about that opening 1-2 punch, man.
Yeah. And I got to see them do it live. He did not the last tour. I think it was 2018 or whatever. They were doing that, which was also just absolutely magic to hear it live. But it's just it's a concept album. So this is, this is my concept album thing of, straight out storytelling. It sets you on the path. And Eric, what did you say, Eric? If I didn't do it, you would have, or
I would have been disappointed in you if you hadn't put it on your list. It should have been number 1.
I try not to, over ELO things, because I just don't want it.
Wow.
But I'm like, there's no way. and then if you're wondering, that's number 2. So what could number 1 be, Eric? Holy smoke!
Yeah, I wonder.
Yeah. Oh, I got my guys are rolling out the 50-pound cannon for number 1 now. They'll be ready by the time we get there. So, all right, everybody, number 1. You know what? You got to let us know on social media, Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube. What are your picks? I can add them to the YouTube music playlist or to the YouTube video playlist. Just leave us a comment on any one of those social media sites. And we've done it in the past, and we love doing it. And we love hearing what your choices are. So make sure that you hit us up and give us your picks so we can add it to this dynamic and growing playlist as we soar into number 1. Christopher Clark, founder of The Feast. What is the top of the mountain for you?
So I am one of those Stones fans that think everything they did between Beggar's Banquet and Exile on Main Street, all 4 of them, are perfect albums. And if someone were to ask me at one time what my favorite song was, it would be off of the second of those 4 records, which is Let It Bleed, and it's the opening cut, Gimme Shelter, which has been used in many a Martin Scorsese movie, but to me is one of the
you should just buy the rights.
But it's one of the most perfect album opening cuts, from that very haunting and eerie guitar line to the what's her name, Mary, I can't think of her last name, but the lady who sang that part, that war rape murder line. It's just where her voice breaks. Everything about that song, no matter how many times I hear it or how many Scorsese movies I see it in, it gives me chills. It's just, to me, it's a perfectly recorded and written song. It's amazing.
Yes.
definitely down and dirty Stones.
and it shows you. And it shows you what an incredible, everybody talks about Mick Jagger as a performer and a singer, but it shows you what an incredible harp player is. His harmonica on that song and through that distorted bullet mic is just, it's amazing. It's just, it's one of my favorite songs of all time.
Great album too. It's such, I think it's probably my favorite Stones.
It definitely is. I would definitely say it's probably mine as well.
Mm-hmm.
Really? Eric, I thought the one with Harlem Shuffle on it was your favorite.
No.
Mary Clayton, just to give credit where credit's due, the female singer on that record is Mary Clayton. And I don't know if any of you have ever heard the story about how she ended up on that track, which is really quick. She was pulled out of bed at midnight by one of the producers, and she came to the studio in her pajamas with curlers still in her hair. Mm-hmm. And she was 4 months pregnant, and she sang so hard that the next day she had a miscarriage. And I looked it up to see if it was true. And it really is true. And she said she couldn't listen to the song for a long time because she said whatever she did to herself physically to get to that point, she attributes to the fact that she miscarried at 4 months. It's kind of crazy. It's just a disturbing story to go with the song.
What do you do for your art, right?
Well, seriously.
Good news
crazy, right?
Can only go up from here after that.
Now that I've brought everybody down. Yeah.
But you had us all excited about your number one.
Let me ask you this. I mean, is she speaking from experience? What's the reason that she sang it so hard? And so
I don't know, but I watched an interview with it. She's embraced it now. She's in the interview. It was like had to be like 40 years later. She seems very proud of it, and she talked about the experience. But she said for a little while it was hard for her to hear the version of that song because she associates it with that moment. But I just like the idea of like the thing that always blew me away about that is like I can't imagine singing so hard and being so powerful with your voice that you can cause that kind of physical harm to yourself. It was just always something that stuck with me.
Probably the waking up, being tired. It was probably a whole lot of
that's stressful. Wow.
Jeez, right. Eric, are you gonna lift this up a little?
Actually, I don't know because I'm gonna own the Homer title.
Okay, that's fine.
Because I bring this album up all the time, and I don't care because
I like that. I'm gonna own the Homer. I like it.
I'm gonna own the Homer. I mean, So it's been on my list for ages. We never got around to it, so I don't know what the holdup is. But anyway,
I'm waiting.
Yeah. So, favorite opening to any album ever? It's Quadrophenia. I Am the Sea, The Real Me, Quadrophenia. The 3-part sort of introduction to the concept album that is Quadrophenia, and it's always been my absolute favorite opener to any record. The ambient noise of the waves, the ocean. I never even knew this, but I saw a documentary. Pete Townsend said that there's a little, if you listen close, you can hear I Am the Sea being spoken in a whisper, and you absolutely hear it in the wind. And that's fantastic. I actually went back and listened I was glad that I actually went back and listened to the original mix of the album because I missed that. There's so many things that I remember hearing on because I used to listen to that cassette. Mm-hmm. I wore the damn thing out so many times because I had a little rinky-dink tape recorder, right? And that's what I was fucking listening to, like up against my ear. Yeah. Like the ones that you just make little like speak into. You're not really primarily meant for music, but man, I put that thing in there and I would listen to it endlessly. And and I just went back and I found the original mix on YouTube. And I just, I miss it so much. And I'm just like, God damn, this is so much better.
Is it available? Is it available? Like
I have the original. Okay. I don't know if it's an original, but it's in bad shape. Yeah. It's in really bad shape. So I tried to play it and I just couldn't. Yeah. There's so many scratches and.
Is it on CD? The original mix, or is it only remastered?
No, it's been remastered, and Pete Townsend said it's so much better because he. Quadraphonic sound or whatever. And there's some interesting things happening with the mix, but there's also stuff that's getting buried, which I hate because there's so many things like on the song Drowned, you get that great piano solo by Chris Stainton, who's the only musical guest on the record, the only other musician that plays on the record, the Who does everything else. But that in the on the the remaster or whatever is that piano solo is completely buried. with just rhythm guitar, and it's like, where's the piano? I can't hear it. Damn it,
They took it out.
So yeah. So they took it out, but even in the opening track, there are things that you hear that you don't on the CD or on Spotify when you listen to it.
See, that's when people mess with things,
Yeah, because Pete Towns always hated the way it sounded. I thought the album sounded great.
Yeah.
Probably one of their best sounding albums because it was just so, the way it was recorded. It was recorded in a mobile studio. I think it was the Stones. I think it belonged to the Stones. It was like a one of those, big vans that they, so a lot of the stuff he would record all the sound effects and things like on location on the beach in Brighton and all that kind of thing. And, he would put it all together and yeah, it's great opening to a great album. Probably one of my top 5 favorite albums of all time.
Right, there it is.
Always will be. Yeah.
And Eric has coined a new phrase that we're going to carry forward. Own the Homer.
Own the Homer.
I own the Homer. I love it. I'm going to own the Homer. Then we know that we know what's coming when someone says, I'm going to own the Homer. Jerry, are you going to own the Homer, or what do you have for your number 1?
Well, I think I screwed up because I went backwards, but also because Chris took like 3 of my choices. But
sorry, man.
No, I'm glad to be in such good company. Mine is going to go. It's more the album. It's because it's from Dropkick Murphys because I love seeing these guys live.
They're amazing.
The Warriors Code album. It's the opening is Your Spirit's Alive. And it's one of those songs that just kicks off the album, gets you going, and it brings me more to. I mean, I love the whole album, but for some reason that album brings me more to when I've seen them the few times live, to where it's just like. I mean, the last time I saw them was not far from where I live, and I was able to be right up against the stage, and I'd never experienced that, and it was like I was there with my son, and I'm like, I have no idea. I'm like 50 years old. I don't know if I'm supposed to be up here dealing with this shit, but it was so much just because they're one of those bands where the crowd and the band have such a tie to each other. And it was like some guy randomly bought me beers because he was drunk online. We were waiting, and he had seen them like so many times, and I was like blown away with how many times. And he was like my age, and I'm like, it just hit me like, why are we? It seemed weird that I'm still going to these things, but it just seemed right. And this album is one of the first ones that really got me into it. So that's like that kind of Your Spiritual Life just kind of sends me off into the rest of the album. And so that's why, also because they were moved up on the list, having other ones taken off earlier. So it's Your Spiritual Life from the Warriors Code from the Dropkick Murphys.
I'm looking forward to hearing that because I pretty much know Shipping Up to Boston and maybe one other one. From Dropkick.
Which are classics.
Yeah, Dropkick Murphys. I mean, we could thank Scorsese again.
Yeah, exactly.
I got to see them live in Brooklyn about, I don't know, probably like 5 or 10 years ago with Rancid and the Bouncing Souls. It was one of the most fun shows I've ever been to. It was really cool. They're a great band live.
Even if you don't know the song, you just feel like you're jumping around and doing stuff. So,
and then they pull people up on the stage for the encore. And then if they catch you on your phone taking a picture, like a selfie, they put a sign behind the thing that says, "Put your fucking phone down and enjoy the moment." Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah,
they were bringing up the women for, I forget what the song is, but like they get everyone up on stage, and you're just like, I don't know what the hell's going on. I should be doing this, but it's just a hell of a lot of fun. So
yeah, it is.
That's awesome. Great choice. Dropkick. So were you drop kicked by a Murphy at the show?
Once when I was a kid, but I recovered.
And you were given a stone cold stunner.
Yeah. Now you're going old school.
I could even go further with the, Superfly Jimmy Snuka. But we'll stop there. My number 1, what could be more number 1 than ELO? There was only ever going to be one. This was only ever going to be number 1. There was never any doubt. No matter how much I love ELO and all the other stuff, the song counts in 1, 2, 3, 4, and a music revolution started with "I Saw Her Standing There" from the Beatles.
Good one.
This
Okay.
this started the whole fucking ball of wax. This album and this song from the original part. This is the original Parlophone English release. Starts off with "I Saw Her Standing There," and Paul McCartney counts in 1, 2, 3, 4, and everything started. You know, they recorded this album in like a matter of like 2 or 3 days. Everything was done live, and you know, this for me, this is probably one of my favorite. This might be my favorite Beatles album. Like this is it right here. This is like where it all came from. Is Please Please, like
awesome.
everything came from this album. It's just the energy on here is amazing. It's easy to take their older stuff and be like, oh, holding hands and She Loves You and stuff like that. Please Please Me was just energy. It was just they put these guys into a studio. They said, here's a producer we're going to hire for you. He does comedy records and classical music, but he'll do the rock for you. What do you guys have? They had their stuff. There was a couple of covers, and they just recorded it, and it was just the energy on that album is nothing that the Beatles, because they got so popular afterwards that they had the luxury to experiment and do other things. But on this album, they were just 4 guys that were hungry, that were one of thousands of bands in Liverpool and England, right? They were all gigging. They were all playing in Hamburg, Germany. They all knew each other. They got lucky and they were ready. That's the thing is they were ready, and what was captured, that count of, now that song could be problematic as, she was just 17, but they were like 19 and 20 when they wrote the song. So,
right.
Like 50 writing, she was just, that'll be a little
That's
different.
true.
So it's kind of, it was playing to the younger audience at the time, but, God, I just love that album. It's just so
Excellent.
special. Something that they caught lightning in a bottle, and it's one of my treasures that I got an English one, which has the correct sequencing, and before they chopped the shit out of it in America.
Always got to go for the English version of the Beatles.
Yeah, the Parlophones. I think I need one more of the original stuff. I think I need I forget, and then I'll have all the because once Sgt. Pepper came out, the releases were the same in England and America. They didn't chop them up, but everything up until Revolver, the American versions had less on them because they would make other albums.
I still remember when I was a kid, and I remember my dad showed me the movie Help and then wanted to get me the soundtrack. And I remember him going into the record store and being very deliberate. He's like, you got to get the English version. I can't, you don't want the American version because it's got all the orchestrations on it. You want the one that's an actual album from England. Like I still remember that.
That's cool.
Your dad's a good man.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's all right most of the time.
Good friend of Felix Pappalardi. He is.
Yes, he is.
Okay, that's our top 5. Do we have enough time, gents, for maybe two or 3 honorable mentions? What do you say?
Sure, why not?
I'm definitely down.
All right, let's switch things up though. I want Jerry to go first. I don't want him to feel like he's getting the rug pulled out. We're going to swap Jerry and I don't want him to feel that we're kind of doing them dirty. So we'll try and get two honorable mentions in. So go ahead, Jerry, give us your first honorable mention.
Okay, mine will be quick because I think most people love to rip this song, and it was mostly a one-hit wonder, but I actually love the whole album. It's funny to say. It is Tub Thumping from Chumbawamba. You listen to the whole album. It's all in the same vein, and I know most people just know that album, and it's been mocked on so many things, and deservedly so, because it just is there's just a funny energy about it. But I listened to the whole album, and it just explodes from that. Again, one of those ones where it just kind of it sets the tone for the album. You go through with it. It's a weird one-hit wonder, but I still listen to the album. And I don't care. I think Family Guy loves to rip on that song, but I will always. It's on my. When I run, I actually listen to music sometimes, and that many of those songs will come up on the whole album. So I'm going Tub Thumping.
Yeah, you probably can't go to an arena or a sporting event.
Yes.
For people that don't know it by Tub Thumping, it's that I get knocked down, but I get up again.
A whiskey drink, a drink of vodka drink.
Yeah, it's about drinking.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken, that band, Chumbawamba, they were so subversive that when that got popular, they either broke up or they made an album after it that was so different as to be almost unlistenable. They were kind of like thumbing their nose at,
because they were anarchists.
Yeah, we didn't do this. We got popular by accident.
Yeah, well, whatever. I still like your album, so shut up.
I love Tub Thumping. All right, Eric, honorable mention number 1.
We covered the album,
yes,
but goddamn, it's such a great opening track.
Okay,
and and because we already talked about the album, that's why it wasn't in my top 5. But Funeral for a Friend, Love Lies Bleeding, Elton John,
such a good one.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know what, Eric? It's not one of our most popular episodes for some reason. So I'm glad that you're bringing it. Yeah, I'm glad you're bringing it back up again.
Wow.
That is probably my favorite Elton John track. That whole bit, the whole opening, it's eerie, it's somewhat downbeat, but the song Love's Light Bleeding, it just comes in and it's just, it's one of his best tracks ever.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. Love that. Love the song. Love the album. It's a great double album. We kind of talked about that, but yeah. And you talk about setting the tone for the record too. I mean, I don't know if this song has, it's not a concept of any sort, but the sound and the sort of cadence of the songs that follow just sort of fits, it's a wondrous piece of music. I think you talked about magic. Here it is again, takes you somewhere. It definitely sets a tone, a mood. And it's like, what am I listening to? I'm hearing this funeral procession, bells, and it's very eerie. I'm thinking fog, and I'm thinking coffins, and but then that swirling keyboard comes in, and it's just just takes you somewhere else, and then it just bleeds right into Love Lies Bleeding too. It's El Dorado doesn't stop.
Yep.
It just blends right in, and it just what a great track. So,
a twofer. I'm glad you used the word tone.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's not. Yeah. It doesn't sound like the rest of the album. Like you could make the case that for Jerry when he said Pearl Jam, it's kind of like if you get the opening song, if you get once, you kind of get the rest of the album.
Mm-hmm.
But with Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, it's a tonal thing. It's an energy thing, right? That kind of there's a certain or I think you use the word feel also. Like there's a certain feel that has that kind of powers the rest of the album. There's a lot of ballads and other things on the album, but the opening track kind of powers the rest of the way, the rest of the journey.
Right.
Which
and it was great. I saw him a couple of times in concert, and that was a great performance too. And he was under the piano. Oh, I remember that distinctly. He's playing like this, he's squatting down behind. Yeah, moving the bench aside, and he's playing. All you see is his hands on the song, and it's wow. Yeah, he was a force, man. He put on a great show. Elton John. So
excellent. From Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. I'm glad you picked that. I'm glad we're revisiting Mr. Reginald Dwight. Christopher Clark, you walked away. You went and did something. You made it back.
The power strip that I had the computer plugged into wasn't turned on, and I was afraid the computer was going to die. That would have been bad.
Oh man, that would have lost you.
Yeah.
Right,
so
what do you got for your first honorable mention?
So I'm going to pick something a little bit more offbeat. It's actually one of Eddie Vedder's used to talk about this record all the time. They were a really important band to me as a kid, especially their lead singer, a guy named Ian MacKaye. And it's the band Fugazi, and they had an album called 13 Songs. It was a combination of their first 2 EPs, I think. And the opening cut on that record is a song called Waiting Room. And it's this punky song with a reggae vibe on it. And it's got a chorus that, is very sing-alongable. from what I've heard, the Washington Commanders actually play it at their shows, and the band is at their games, and the band is from DC. But it's one of those songs that's just really infectious, and you can't help but like get caught up in it, and it sets off what is really a masterpiece of a post-punk record. So I definitely have to give them a nod.
Chris, are you originally from New York?
Born and raised in Yonkers.
So why don't you say Fugazi?
Because I'm going by how the band calls themselves.
I don't care. You're from New York. There are certain expectations.
One of my biggest regrets is not going to see this band as a teenager, because they're just I love all of their records.
Are they still? They're no longer together.
They went on hiatus in 2002, and I actually, now that they're all in their 60s, I don't know if they'd be able to put forth the same energy they did back when they were in their 30s and early 40s.
Never know. Maybe they're saving it up.
Would be nice.
Could be. For my first honor, much like Eric, my honorable mentions are stuff from previous episodes. But there are two songs that aren't, and one for some reason really got on my top 5, and then I moved it down, and I don't know why. It's strange, but Hollywood Nights by Bob Seger from Stranger in Town.
That's a great tune, man.
I don't know what it is about it. Like, he's so like, I think we just talked about tone.
Yeah, you're on like a ride with him.
This is different.
Yeah.
This is energy.
Going with it.
It's got it's just this driving song.
This is energy. This is energy over tone. It just like Seeger is just so fucking American.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's just like there's that's the only, like, when you put it on, it's like Seeger.
Yeah.
It's like there's just something about the music he makes that, it's different than the American Springsteen. It's different than the American John Mellencamp. There's something about Seeger that's just different. Maybe it's more working. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's more blue collar. I don't know, or there's just something. But Hollywood Nights from Stranger in Town just kind of sets that album, just kind of lights the fuse and said, okay, we're just going to let it go from here, and let you guys take it, take over from here. Here's Hollywood Nights, and I don't know what it is. I don't know why it kind of came onto my list, but I was going through my collection. I'm like, oh wow, Hollywood Nights just kind of, it's a banger from the word go on a great album.
I feel like you should be moving, like you should be doing something when it's going.
Yeah, it's a driving song, or it's how come it hasn't been in a movie yet, in a murder scene? Like, call Scorsese.
A lot of his songs could be, or maybe they are. Some of them are opening tracks to some of his albums, but I mean, I feel like a lot of his songs could kick off a great.
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, that's a great choice.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm like, Hollywood Nights. It's got to be. So, all right, let's do another one. Jerry.
This is probably going to be my most esoteric one.
Oh boy.
Because I was surrounded by guitarists when I was growing up, like all my friends. It's Liberty by Steve Vai on Passion and Warfare, and it kind of is
song, man. I love that album.
Yeah, like the whole, like, it was, like there's a lot of like upbeat to it, and the song Liberty kind of is like a crescendo that grows into it, and then it just rocks into the rest of the album.
Such a great record.
Steve Vai was like I briefly tried to be a guitarist, but I'm like, I can't freaking handle this. But one of my best friends was like an amazing guitarist, and they loved it, and they're who introduced me to it, and it just, like, that whole album is, it's like what you think. It's kind of like, it's Satriani-ish, and like there's a lot of fast paced that, Steve Vai was known for his technical, insanity with how he plays, but this Liberty just kind of explodes the album opening for me. And then it just kind of rolls from there. But I was hesitant with that because Steve Vai, not a lot, maybe more people than I think, but I thought it was a little more esoteric, a little more off the beaten path than most people might know.
Yeah, he played with Roth. He was the devil in Crossroads. Yes. I mean, come on,
Zappa.
Steve Vai.
Yep. Actually, Liberty is the song I use as my alarm clock on my phone.
Really? Oh, right.
Chris, is there music out there that you haven't listened to yet?
Yeah, anything that's produced after like 2010.
Almost everything. You're like, yes. I'm like,
No, I loved Passion and Warfare. I remember my cousin playing that record for me when I was like 10 years old, and I'm just being blown away by like the audience is listening.
Amazing. Yeah. All right. Steve Vai, is that our first instrumental? Like, well, no, El Dorado Overture is the first instrumental, but that's got speaking in it. So we'll give Jerry the first instrumental nod. Eric, what do you got for another?
Actually, Scuttlebutton's instrumental.
Scuttlebutton, that's right. Actually,
yeah.
There you go.
You're right.
But
Eric has speaking at the end of it, so I don't know if that counts.
And then she yells "heads up" at the beginning.
That's right. Yes,
heads up.
I feel like this track, I don't know. I always love this song, and I feel like this is one of the Allman Brothers Band's best tracks. And it's like after or around the time Dwayne died. I think they were in the process of recording the album, Eat a Peach. So Ain't Wasting Time No More, I think, is a great opening track. I love the groove of it. I love the slide guitar by Dickie Betts. It's not Dwayne, unfortunately, but he really kind of took it up, and actually they started producing some really great music post Fillmore East, live type of stuff. They were actually recording songs now. I mean, 4 or 5 minute songs, and this was, I think, one of the best that they had to offer. And after this, Brothers and Sisters would come out, and there's some great tracks on that, but I don't know. I just feel like this one it's really well produced. It's well put together. It's a band I feel like is on the rise of maturing instead of, just sort of jamming out and just actually getting together and really congealing into something, a formidable studio band, rather than just jamming out. So they started, making some really great music here. So yeah, that's going to be my other honorable mention. Yeah, but
Eric always representing the blues.
Yeah.
He's got Stevie Ray Vaughan and Allman Brothers. I mean, what else? Great choice. Is that one of their longer?
No, this is like 5 minute song.
That was like a single, I think.
Yeah, Eat a Peach.
So they got in and out.
Yep.
Nice. All right.
Ain't Wasting Time No More. It's a great song. Yeah.
Nice. Looking forward to it. Christopher Clark.
All right. So
this will be our final one. We'll leave some meat on the bone for everybody at home also to give some of theirs. So
as you guys know, one of my favorite, if not my favorite band is this band Dream Theater. And in 1992, their album that broke through was an album called Images and Words. And they have one hit. And their one hit is the opening track on Images and Words, a song called Pull Me Under. And it's, it starts off like this, it's one of those songs that kind of builds as you go along. And it's a really good song. It's got a really like this chorus that when they play it live, people still sing along to it, even though it's like this really complex song and everything. And it's definitely for people who don't listen to them, it's probably their most well-known song, but there's a reason for that because it's a great song. I remember my friend Tommy telling me about it when he saw it on the Headbangers Ball and what a great song it is, and you need to check this band out. Yeah. So yeah, and actually they're so synonymous with it. The band put out like a compilation record a few years ago, and it was called Greatest Hit and 21 other pretty cool songs. That's their one song. He seems to know.
Very self-deprecating.
That's awesome.
Yes, it's a really good song, and they're a phenomenal band, and I can't wait to go see them next month at Radio City Music Hall.
Are they doing residency?
See now, Chris, I would have been disappointed if you hadn't picked Dream Theater. See, that's what they did.
See, what you don't know is Eric has secret expectations for each one of us. He doesn't reveal them until.
Well, Jerry, I knew metal was going to be, your bet, you're pretty much your whole thing. But no, so I was very, very surprised. Not surprised, but I was very pleased with your choices. So there you go.
But when we do a top 5 like novelty songs from the 70s, Jerry will still find a way to get Maiden in there somehow. Well, this was
Early Maiden.
recorded with Paul Di'Anno, and it was actually a funny song.
I almost put a Paul Di'Anno song on my list.
See?
All right, my final one, I'm going to go to an episode that we did, and I think it was like our second episode 2 or 3 or 1 of those early ones. So far back that no one's probably even ever listening to it anymore. So I feel good with going with The Changeling by The Doors from LA Woman. Opening track that is kind of tells you that this is a different Doors than you've heard. The Lizard King is gone, and in its place is this bearded, scruffy, rough-voiced blues singer that is now the lead singer of The Doors, and it totally has the feeling of, swampy, sweaty, bluesy, just gritty. Really, what The Doors had started to kind of do with Morrison Hotel is kind of strip things back, get it a little bluesier, and then on LA Woman they just really kind of peeled it all away, recorded in their rehearsal space, some vocals recorded in the bathroom. So yeah, you hear a different Morrison from the beginning, from The Changeling. His voice is ravaged by the years of excess, and it's almost chilling when you hear it. It's like, who is this? Who is this? Because he's not singing like "Touch Me," and
he's not the crooner.
He's not have that, because he can sometimes have that really soft, angelic voice, and it's gone. It's and he says, "See me change," and he literally did on this album. It was kind of it'll be their final album, but "The Changeling" by The Doors from LA Woman.
Yeah, great choice.
Yeah, very good choice.
Yeah. Did you ever hear that album, Chris?
Yes, I have. It's my dad's favorite Doors album.
You really weren't giving, Steve Vai got like the fist bump and you jumped around.
Well, you put me on the spot. Now I feel like I gotta hang back a little bit.
You got so excited. You got so excited. You plugged in your wall outlet. I mean, you did a whole bunch of things. And then
different feelings.
I feel this.
I love that record, but I figured, you're gonna put me on the spot again, man.
I think that's going to do it. Well done, gents. What a great eclectic.
This is fun.
Yeah, this was cool.
Yeah, a great eclectic.
Good idea, Chris.
We couldn't just pick stuff pie out of the sky. We really had to think, well, this has to be the opening track, and what does it mean to me, and why is it so important? So, Chris, thank you for bringing this subject up, because it really was a fun exercise.
Yep.
In really kind of choosing what these front songs mean. And I think we revealed a little bit also about how we feel about the music. Eric with Quadrophenia, how important the album is to him, and how important, for Chris and Jerry, the beginnings or the reemergence of rock and roll in the late 80s, early 90s was, and how those albums were kind of calling cards and signatures for their listening experiences. So we hope you at home, let us know what they got to be album openers. It can't be like first song on side 2. It's got to be the opening track on the album. First song on side 2 will be our next top 5. But no. Anyway, but that's going to do it for this episode. Jerry Sullivan, of course, as always, thank you for showing up, and I love your I love the stories that come along with it, because it's usually like concert related, or your memories are so vivid with a lot of these things. So I really like when there's those stories that are associated with them. So
it's the PBR that flows through me.
Well, there we go. Got to get you a sponsorship.
I'd be fine with that.
Christopher Clark, founder of The Feast, thank you so much for bringing your considerable knowledge to bear, and it frightens me.
Frightens a lot of people.
I'm starting to become afraid of you. With the amount of music that you consume and listen to, and the breadth and variety is absolutely nothing short of amazing, and I appreciate it. I love that. You have all these things that you could speak to,
and I love that I have an outlet to talk about it, so that I don't drive my wife insane.
Yeah, I keep getting a check from Yonkers every other month. So I guess she's paying me to keep you busy. So it
Yeah,
works,
there you
you
go.
know, it
Go
works for both of
anywhere.
us.
This is just so that Dean gets paid for this.
Yeah, it's
Yep, there you go.
symbiotic. You know, she sends me money. She tells me to keep you busy, and you know, it seems to work for now. As for Eric and I, we will be waiting until we see you again. Eric will be, of course, in that beautiful, comfy couch. I'm thinking about moving to my couch. I'm kind of putting the things in motion, or should I stay here? Should I stay in my corner, Eric?
Yes.
What do you think?
Isn't that
Well,
a
I
new
like
chair?
I like your background.
I was just
but if
thinking the
you're-
same thing.
But if you're going to be more comfortable,
I don't know. Just maybe something different, you know, like you know,
yeah.
thinking about, you know, everyone always looks so comfortable. I always look like I'm, you know, kind of, you know, in an office or something, you know. But we'll see. He gets me jealous because he's always on that couch, and it just looks like he's got the pillows, and I'm like, oh man,
Yeah.
Well, are you going to take Felix Pappalardi with you?
I'll have to get another one. I'll get an actual Felix Pappalardi.
There you
Put it
go.
up. And then people say, oh, is that Jeff Lynne? That's exactly what'll happen. Anyway, I digress.
Oh,
That's
man.
enough for that. Eric and I will be here waiting patiently until we see and hear from you again. Again, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. You can comment away. Give us your picks. We will add them to this wonderful episode. That would not have been what it was without these two gentlemen. Of course, Eric and I will be cooking up some new episodes. I feel like Quadrophenia is on the horizon somewhere in the spring, perhaps.
Okay.
Spring has sprung, so we'll gather up a new cast of characters, and we will break that down as well. So for Chris, for Jerry, for Eric, of course, this has been Dean, and we will see you on the first cut.